In the 1970s, when I was a young teenager, my father, I lived in Minneapolis, where Control Data Corporation was. My father worked for them, and they were one of the big computer companies. And they bought a little company that was making a computer to teach people. And it was very user-friendly for the day. And he wanted all the executives to understand what the product was. So we had a terminal in our basement, and it was the kind of thing where you plugged the telephone line into I don't know what it even was. Anyway, and I ended up spending a lot of time on it because you could chat. And there was one little line slowly appearing, but it was, for me, I was a shy teenage girl, and it was basically all men online, young programmer guys and me. So I could just endlessly, it was cyber flirting. So I developed a real liking for that, form of communication. And then, of course, years went by, nothing happened. And then I heard about the Well in San Francisco, and I thought, oh my God, that would be just like, this Play-Doh computer, but with actually interesting people. But unfortunately, you couldn't log on without making a long-distance call back then. And then I discovered also that it was dominated by Deadheads, and I'm allergic to the Grateful Dead. So then I read that there was an East Coast version called Echo, and I ended up joining that and spending like 4 straight years hanging out on Echo all the time. I was completely addicted. So when the web started to percolate, I was one of the few kind of cultural type people. I had been like a TV producer, and I was kind of an arty bookworm type. So I was one of the few people like that who actually was immersed in this technology, even though I wasn't a techie. And someone that I had met online, who was an early interactive designer, Jamie Levy, she told the original editor-in-chief, oh, you should hire Marisa Bow to do this. So he hired me as managing editor, and I was not only not a magazine person, but I wasn't a mainstream culture person at all, so I didn't even know what managing editor was. But he dropped out because he wasn't really that into it. He didn't really care about the interactive stuff. And so I took over a few weeks before the launch. I didn't want to be a typical magazine and report on hot trends and interview cool bands and stuff like that. And on the other hand, I didn't want to be like the more sort of quote-unquote brainy magazines that like Salon or Slate, which I still think is very good. I just didn't want to be like them. And Feed, which were kind of commenting on media all the time. And there was all this criticism of the media at the time by these people, and I felt like, well, if it's so bad, why not just ignore it? Create your own world. So almost all the text in Word was first-person memoirs of people's experiences, kind of unvarnished. And then another part of what I wanted to do, and this was it was lucky that I ended up working with Yoshi, who Jamie had hired, because he had the same sensibility as I wanted everything to be very pop art, kind of like no division between high and low culture, and including the text. A first-person story, it could be like a story someone tells at AA or something like that. It's not brainy, but it's not stupid either. And all the sort of interactive, more designy things also they weren't stupid, but they weren't trying to be high art either. There were a few interactive collaborations between mostly Yoshi and Ranjit, but also some other people. And Sissy Fight was the big kahuna. That was like the biggest project we ever did, I think, and that was just a fantastic combination of Yoshi's incredible design skill and sensibility, and my and Naomi Clark's experience with online socializing and understanding about how that worked, and Eric Zimmerman's game design expertise. I think probably one of my happiest moments ever at Word, I remember just jumping up and down with Eric and probably Naomi when we realized that one of the players had named himself Baba Wawa, and he had sort of a stupid flip hairdo because you could choose your hairdo. And instead of playing the game, he was holding chat shows in the game space, and he would interview the best players, but he played the character. He was like a performance artist. He played the character as this sort of drunk has-been TV interviewer, and they would take screenshots like every 30 seconds and then post them. And we were just like this is exactly what we wanted. This is so exactly what we wanted. And there was more stuff like that. That's the thing that stands out in memory as being the most fantastic thing ever.